Welcome back, Philosophy 135. Dr. K here. I hope you all are doing well. In our last video, we looked at Maimonides' cosmological argument for the existence of God. In this video, we're going to look at Al-Ghazali's, or simply Ghazali's, design argument for God. So Ghazali was a medieval Islamic philosopher, and he advances the argument for God that we're going to consider in his work on knowing yourself and God. So before we begin, let's refresh ourselves on Rowe's taxonomy of arguments for the existence of God to see generally where this argument falls. We saw that Rowe divided the arguments into two main categories: a posteriori arguments and a priori arguments. And under a posteriori arguments, we saw there were two main subcategories, namely cosmological arguments and design arguments. While the last two arguments we examined, one from Plato and one from Maimonides, were both cosmological arguments, Ghazali's argument is a design argument. Design arguments, remember, are going to be based on or start with facts that the world exhibits order and design. And as we'll see when we look at Ghazali's argument, at the base of his argument for the existence of God are facts about the complexity or design of the human body. Hence, we're going to characterize Ghazali's argument for God as an argument from design, specifically an argument from the design of the human body. Let's turn now to discussing that argument. So we're going to start here with an overview of the argument, and then we're going to look at the argument in more detail. So there is a main argument that consists of two premises and a conclusion. And then Ghazali is going to offer also an argument for premise one. So having looked at the argument in its entirety from a kind of bird's eye view, let's now zoom in to the argument and look at it in more detail. And we will start with the main part of the argument. Premise one: a supremely powerful, supremely knowing, and supremely good being exists. Now, a being such as that sounds an awful lot like the being that is God on the classical or traditional conception of God. At least it has many of the core features of God under that conception. Premise two: if a supremely powerful, supremely knowing, and supremely good being exists, then God exists. And the conclusion in 3, which is a derivation of 1 and 2, thus God exists. Now, look again at the premises of the argument. 1, a supremely powerful, knowing, and good being exists. And 2, if a supremely powerful, knowing, and good being exists, God exists. Now, of these two premises, premise 2 is less controversial. Ghazali, therefore, doesn't offer an argument for it. He does, however, offer an argument for premise 1. So let's have a look at the argument for premise 1 now. So premise 1, remember, was the claim that there exists a supremely powerful, supremely knowing, and supremely good being. Ghazali argues for this claim as follows. Premise 1a: if a supremely powerful, supremely knowing, and supremely good being did not exist, then a human being could not come into being or exist. 1b: but humans come into being and exist. Therefore, 1, there exists a supremely powerful, supremely knowing, and supremely good being. Right? Again, so if there wasn't a supremely knowing, powerful, and good being, then you couldn't get a creature such as a human being in existence having the features that it does. But human beings do exist, therefore there must be a supremely good, supremely knowing, supremely powerful being. Okay, that is the crux or the main idea of the argument for premise 1. Now, of the two premises in the argument for 1, namely 1a and 1b, premise 1a is obviously the more controversial of the two, and accordingly, Ghazali offers some evidence or rationale in support of it. So let's look at some of those texts now. The first text in which we see Ghazali motivating this claim is one in which he's just discussing the intricacies of the human body. This is from page 35 of your reading. He writes, "There are also many marvels in the creation of the body, externally and internally. In each organ there are marvelous qualities. In each one there are strange graces. In the human body there are several thousand sinews, veins, and bones, each one possessing a different shape and attribute, each one for a special purpose. And you are unaware of all this. You know this much, that the hand is for grasping, the foot is for walking, the tongue is for speaking. But you do not know that your eye is composed of 10 different layers. If there is one less than 10, sight is impaired. Nor do you know what each layer is for and for what purpose the eye needs it. The small size of the eye is obvious, but its scientific exposition has filled many large volumes." And for the next paragraph or two, he goes on and on in the same way about different organs of the body and how they work and function. Right? So only something supremely powerful, knowing, and good could create something like a human being, could bring it into existence from something as simple as a sperm and egg. So after going over the intricacies of the anatomy of the human body, Ghazali goes on to suggest that through studying it, you can come to see three main attributes or facts about its creator. The first, Ghazali writes, is that he will know that the builder of this mold and the creator of this person is perfectly all-powerful. His power cannot be affected by defect or weakness, for he can do whatever he desires. There is no work in the world more wonderful than this, that from a droplet of fluid he creates such a person. For one who can do this, resurrecting him after death will be much easier. The second is that he will know that there is a knower whose knowledge encompasses all things. Such marvels with all these strange devisings would not be possible except through the perfection of his knowledge. The third is that his grace, mercy, and care for his servants is limitless. The Creator has not stinted in anything that is requested for him. Rather, he has given what is requisite, such as a heart, a liver, a brain, and the basics of life. And he has given him things which he needed but were not absolute necessities, such as hands, feet, eyes, and a tongue. And he has given him that which was not needed or necessary, but would improve his appearance, such as the blackness of the hair, the redness of the lips, the arch of the eyebrows, a straight posture, the evenness of the eyelashes, etc. Right? So we can infer the existence of a creator that's all good, all knowing, and all powerful from the existence of the human body, because only such a creator with those features could bring a human body into existence. Therefore, as 1a suggested, if such a being that was all good, all knowing, and all powerful did not exist, then human beings could not exist. All right, guys. So in this video, we considered Ghazali's argument from design for God. We saw that it had three main parts: a main argument, an argument for premise 1, and a rationale for premise 1a. And we also considered several direct texts from Ghazali in support of 1a. Of course, there's more to say about the argument, but we've covered the essentials and the basics about the argument, and you should have these down with respect to how it goes. As always, I encourage you to think critically about the argument. Is the argument sound? That's to say, is the reasoning good? And are all the premises true? If not, why not? Remember, anytime you're presented with an argument, if you disagree with the conclusion, you have two main options. Show that the conclusion doesn't follow from the premises, or show that one or more of the premises are false. If you have any thoughts on whether the argument succeeds or not, or how it could be made better, or even if you just had any questions about the argument or things you needed clarification on, I'd love to see it in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video. Dr. K out.